And welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. My name is Lewis, and next to me, of course, is my beautiful co-host Laraib. As we are super excited to get into another week of NFL football action. Before we get into anything, our last episode we talked about some of the some of the playoff teams that we really liked. And I know a lot of the times we do these predictions episodes, we really aren't able to touch on Monday Night Football because we usually film beforehand. But if you remember, a big statement that we both kind of agree on, I went a little more radical than Larav, is we had a very strong belief in this Patriots team. On a scale of 1 to 10, I think I said an 8, how confident I'd be they make the playoffs. However, losing at home to the Chicago Bears, letting the Bears score 33, which is by far the most they've scored all season, and indecision and chaos in the quarterback room and on offense. I am no longer confident in this program. I know I probably, am making a mistake here. This is the Bill Belichick way, just, smoke and mirrors, making you think they're bad. Then they smoke the team next week, and we'll get into that game. But I mean, that went against everything you know about the Patriots. Bill Belichick versus rookie head coach. Nope. Bill Belichick versus young quarterback. Nope. How about chaos within the building? Nope. Now we have a quarterback controversy, which we know that Bill Belichick has always been strong in his beliefs. He takes a stance and he sticks with it, and he does not go back. But in this case, he says Mac Jones is starting after it was a bad pick. Don't get me wrong. Pulls Mac out of the game, brings Zappy back in, and then tells the halftime reporter that they're both going to play in the second half. Meanwhile, Zappy gets all the snaps, and he looks awful in that second half. So now no one knows what's going on, and you're going to get questions every single day. Just chaos, unneeded, unwanted chaos that you forced onto yourself. So I will get into the Patriots game when we get into the predictions, but I was not very happy with that Monday Night Football game, as I made it my best bet for the Patriots, and I think all of America looks pretty dumb right now.
Well, we know Bill Belichick he's always a mastermind. And so I still have a little bit of faith. I know you were at an 8. I think I maybe was at a 6 or 7. And so I'm still hovering around that area, Lewis, even after a bad loss. I think they can
I'm at a
get it
5.
together. Yeah, so they're still right there, Lewis. And so we'll see what they can do, especially this week. We know how they are against the Jets. But we'll get into that game a little bit, Lewis. But why don't we start off with our predictions for week 8?
Let's get
The
it.
first game we have the Las Vegas Raiders going to New Orleans to play your Saints. Las Vegas minus 1.5 on the road, Lewis. What do you think that the Saints need to do at home to get a dub?
See, it's very interesting because the line when this game came out was 2.5, and now it's gone down to 1.5. And without any really big injury news coming from the Raiders or injury luck coming from the Saints camp, coming off Thursday Night Football, that is a plus. But I think for the Saints offense in particular, it's been running the ball. This Raiders team, they have a great front, but you can definitely run the ball on this Raiders team, which is why, they've lost some of these close games. They just do not have the ball enough. And how we've seen the Saints defense play and some of the quarterback play from the Saints, you need to have success in the run game if you want to win this game. It's at home, but I just don't think that this is a really hot Raiders team. I think their offense is playing very well right now. If you can't establish the run and you get into these third and long situations with guys like Max Crosby and Chandler Jones just screaming off the edge, it's going to be a very, very tough time for the Saints in this game. So I think the Raiders have a distinctive matchup advantage, but we'll see. Anything can happen in that Superdome, as you know.
Oh yeah, for sure. But for this Raiders team, Lewis, sitting at 2-4, I think we can both agree that this team is better than what their record indicates.
Yes.
And so now, if you want to, start creeping back into those playoff race, it's going to be games like these on the road where you're playing against an inferior opponent, where you force you on them. And Josh Jacobs has been absolutely electric the past couple of weeks on the ground, and so I expect for them to continue that against the Saints defense, which was exploited last week by Benjamin on the ground and DeAndre Hopkins to the air. And so I like the Raiders in this one, Lewis. Unfortunately for you and your Saints. So I'll be taking the Raiders 27-23.
No, you're right. It is unfortunate because there's no hope left, no first round pick. But you know what? I think it's going to be a fun game. I think the Saints show me something. Who knows who's playing an offense this game? You think after a 10-day break off, Thursday Night Football, that Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry would finally start getting healthy, but that does not seem to be the case. However, Marshawn Lattimore is supposed to play, so that gives Devontae Adams a capable corner at least to cover him. So we'll see what happens. I agree with you, unfortunately. I think the Raiders are going to win this game in New Orleans. I'm going to go with the Raiders 30 to Saints 27. It's going to be a close, fun game, but in the end, it's just going to be, an unforced error, a mistake, a penalty, which is nothing new from Dennis Allen, the Dennis Allen regime. But Laraib, that will now move us on to our next game, where we have the Denver Broncos traveling to Jacksonville to face the Jaguars, but they're not traveling to Jacksonville. They're traveling overseas, over the pond, into basically Jacksonville's second home. They've played the most games there ever since the London games have been implemented. And the Jaguars have a pretty good record over there. Jaguars favored by 2.5, Laraib. What am I supposed to make of this Broncos offense without Russell Wilson? Pieces just getting shuffled all over the board, and they have not looked good even with all their pieces there. Can they have any success against this Jacksonville team this week?
Well, Lewis, I think Russell Wilson is going to be back for this
He
game,
is.
so
Okay.
he'll be playing for this game, which is going to be good for them. At least won't have Brett Rippon out there
Yeah.
to
I guess it's better than Brett Rippon, but yeah.
Yeah, but no, I think the focus, Lewis, is really on the Jaguars in this game. They start off really hot. We both really liked how Trevor Lawrence was looking. But these past couple weeks have really, really have been disappointing, Lewis. And so I think it's going to be Trevor Lawrence against this Broncos defense, which is really great. And whichever one of those two comes out on top in this matchup will win this game. Russell Wilson, I think if he just doesn't like turn over the ball, just has some good plays down the field, put up 17, 20 points, then I think the Broncos can win this one, Lewis.
Yeah, and I think for this game, for Jacksonville at least, you trade James Robinson, which, the franchise is showing that they have 100% faith in Travis Etienne as the new workhorse back, which, it was smart by them, kind of, off the injury, building him in, letting James Robinson get the majority of the carries early and kind of work him into the offense until now he's starting to show a lot in the passing game. He's unlocking an element for this Jaguars team, which is crucial to them because they really don't have that many great threats down the field. I mean, Christian Kirk has been solid this season, but it seems like Trevor Lawrence is heavily favoring him and Evan Ingram. So having an extra threat out of the backfield really helps this offense, especially against a stout Broncos defense, which has been playing out of its mind for a team that's 2-5. You'd expect this team to be a lot better because of their defense, but this offense, just traveling to London, this Jaguars team, I know it's a lot of different players. They don't go every year, but the staff is competent in traveling, making that transition. I think there's a lot of Jaguars fans in London, even though the Broncos have a giant fan base in general. So I really like the Jacksonville Jaguars in this game. I think it's going to be a big game for Etienne to kind of make his mark without James Robinson. And I think this offense starts to find an identity against this stout Broncos defense. So I like the Jaguars in this one, Rob.
Yeah, so we're gonna end up disagreeing on this one, Lewis. But I think the Broncos can get it done. For the Jaguars, it's been bad coaching, bad play calling. I know Doug Peterson is really one of those analytical guys who likes to go for it on 4th and short. No matter what the situation is on the field, he has something dialed up always on those 4th and shorts, but sometimes it just comes up short. And so I'll take the Broncos 20-17 in the big London.
And I'm going to go with the Jaguars. I'm going to go a little bit higher scoring. I'm going to go 24 to Broncos 18. I just don't think the Broncos have enough firepower to keep up with really any offense. So if the Jaguars can reach that threshold of points, I don't think that Russell Wilson, Mr. Dangerous, can match them on the other end, Laraib.
All right, Lewis, let's move on to another game from the NFC South Division. We have the Carolina Panthers playing the Atlanta Falcons. Matchup of the week, Lewis. Atlanta -4.5 in this one. And I think that's a really crazy line, Lewis, for both these mediocre teams. I think to put any one of these guys, at -4.5 is a pretty intense line. And I like the Panthers in this one, Lewis. I think last week, their court, PJ Walker he had some amazing throws down the field against that Tampa Bay defense. And I think he can continue some of that against the Falcons. We saw DJ Moore, he lit it up last week. We saw Thompson get a touchdown last week. And then the two running backs on the ground putting up 150 combined last week on the ground against the Buccaneers. And so now you're playing a Falcons team, which is way worse than them. So I think they can continue some of that same success, Lewis.
Yeah, this is a very interesting take by you because although, yes, the Panthers had their best performance of the season, the Falcons arguably had their worst performance of the season, first time ever getting blown out. And for a Falcons team that has shown much better football consistently all season, it's pretty asinine of you to say that this game should be anything more than it is. I think Vegas got this spot on. Atlanta's just the better team. PJ Walker, the film's starting to get out on him. The Falcons know PJ Walker because they played him twice last year and they beat him twice last year. So, for the Falcons' perspective, Arthur Smith, he's been doing a really good job in the running game. Cordero Patterson, I don't think he's coming back this game. He is doubtful, but we'll see what happens. They've been running the ball very well. And if you think about this Panthers team, they did a really good job bottling up the run against Tampa, but Tampa does not run the ball well in general. So if the Falcons can get through the running game, they don't have to worry much about that vaunted Panthers, pass rush with Brian Burns, Derek Thomas. So I think they're going to have a really successful job establishing the run and really getting this game away from the Panthers. And this Falcons defense, it's young, it's fast, or this Falcons defense, yeah, it's young, fast, and they play really good football. I think they got into the quarterback a lot this year. And there's nothing. I mean, the Panthers, they played their best game of the season last week. You get rid of the coach, you get rid of your best running back, Christian McCaffrey. This is a week where they're going to come back down to earth, and I think the Falcons lay the smackdown this week. I'm going to go Falcons 31 to Panthers 16.
Well, Lewis, if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do lose on Thursday Night Football, then the winner of this game will be first place in the NFC South. And so there's going to be both of these teams are definitely going to be wanting to win this game. And I just like the Panthers in this one. I know the Falcons have the fourth best rushing attack in the league, but I think the Panthers can get it done. And so I like the Panthers in a little bit of a tighter game, divisional game, 27-26. But Lewis, let's move on to
that one.
Another game. We have the Chicago Bears after that great Monday night victory, short week for them, going to Dallas to play the Cowboys. Cowboys -9.5. Lewis, how do you feel about that line after the Bears win on Monday night?
I think it's right. Just like the reasoning I had with the Falcons in our last game, the Bears just played their best game of the season, traveling to New England and having a great performance against the Patriots. But then to ask them on a short week to forget all that and move on to the Cowboys and go to Dallas and face this really good Cowboys team, it's a really tough task for them. And I think this Cowboys defensive line is just going to eat alive this Bears front. And I loved what the Bears did last week because we watched that Commanders game on Thursday night 2 weeks ago, and we were so confused on why Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator for the Bears, he wouldn't use Justin Fields to his greatest strengths. He just said, "This is my offense system, and we're going to play it." But for some reason, he had just a sort of eureka moment, and he realized get Justin Fields out of the pocket, get some design runs in there, get the defense on their toes, and use Justin Fields at his best strength. He is a outstanding runner, and he's good throwing on the run. And you saw this offense just completely get unlocked. But it's not going to help them in this game. I just think this Cowboys pass rush is super elite. They're going to have really good spies on Justin Fields all game. And I think this is a good get-back game. The Bears defense has been playing very well, but they did just trade away their best pass rusher and Robert Quinn. He's been having a silent season, but he is still a threat on the edge. So trading him away, I think the Cowboys can have a lot of success offensively. This is just a mismatch, in my opinion. I like the Cowboys in this one.
Yeah, we know how great that Bill Belichick defense is. But when you're facing this Cowboys #1 ranked defense in the NFL, it's going to be a whole different beast for this Bears offense. And so I agree with you. I think the Cowboys, another week for Dak to get back and get back into the groove of the offense. And so I like the Cowboys just like you, Lewis. The Bears, they showed some sparks. Maybe Justin Fields is that guy for them, the franchise guy that they were looking for, but just not this week against the Dallas Cowboys. And so I'm going to take the Cowboys 30-20.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit lower scoring. Just I have respect for both these defenses, but I'm going to go Cowboys 24 to Bears 13. I just think this game never really feels close. Maybe a Justin Fields miraculous game will make this game interesting, but we're going to go ahead and move on to our next noon game. We have the Miami Dolphins traveling to face the Lions in Detroit. Dolphins favored by 3.5 in this game, Laraib. We saw this outstanding Lions offense for the first 4 weeks of the season just light it up, having the highest scoring offense in the league. But the last 2 weeks, they have scored 19 combined, 9 combined points against the Cowboys and the Patriots, Laura. So what can they do to get back to that high-powered offense, or is it just another really tough matchup?
Well, Lewis, this week they do get back DeAndre Swift, so that's gonna be good for them. Just having those playmakers. I know Amon-Ra St. Brown went out that game against the Cowboys, and DeAndre Swift wasn't playing. So just to have those, just those stellar guys back on the field is definitely gonna help them out. And they've played some really difficult defenses, Lewis. Jared Goff revenge game against Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick was getting up for that one. And then you're playing against a stout Cowboys defense. It's going to be difficult to have success when some of the best teams in the NFL have been able to score on them. And so this week playing against the Dolphins team, who played all right on Sunday Night Football against the Steelers. Kenny Pickett showed some flashes. He was able to drive down the field a couple times. But I think for this Lions team, it's going to be able to, they're going to have to ground and pound this ball a lot. Jared Goff, he's been all right. He's a gunslinger, but without Amon-Ra St. Brown, they don't really have any other, threats on the outside that you really like against these corners and Xavier Howard and Byron Jones and the other guys that they have over there. And so I think that's what's going to be the game plan for them. And then for Tua, we saw him get out to a quick start, but then he started to really slow down. And so let's look for them to get the ball into Jalen Waddle's and Tyreek Hill's hands a lot more in this one.
I think this is a desperation game for the Lions because, you saw how good they were looking, but they just couldn't win these games. Now their defense is starting to lock down, but their offense just cannot meet the punch. And we see this a lot with teams where they have really good offenses and bad defenses, and it's juxtaposed by a bad offense and a good defense because it's just how the game script goes because the other offense isn't pressured to put up as much points if you're not showing enough for your own offense. But I think this is a good matchup for the Lions because the Dolphins don't have the stout edge rushers that they've been facing the last 2 weeks. And with this offensive line, if they can establish the run against this Dolphins team, I think they can keep away from this explosive Miami offense, which really has not looked that sharp going on the road to Detroit. This is a desperation game, Laraib. So I am leaning Lions in this matchup. I'm going to go with the Lions. I'm going to go 31-28. It's going to be a fun, explosive game. And like you said, with these offensive weapons back, maybe Jared Goff finds a rhythm. And we know how blitz heavy this Dolphins team is. So if Jared Goff can just hit his hot routes, hit him on Ross St. Brown, get this running game going, I really think they can have success this week. So I'm going with the Lions for my upset. I'm going to go 28 to Dolphins 26. It's going to be a really fun game.
And I'm still going to pick the Dolphins, Lewis. I think indoors in the dome, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are going to look at it as a track field out there, and Tua is just going to have to lob it up to them. So I'm going to stick with the Dolphins, Lewis. Give me the Dolphins 33-26.
Yeah, I like that a lot. But let's move on to our next game. We have the Arizona Cardinals traveling to Minnesota. Arizona coming off a big Thursday Night Football win that might change their season around. And the Vikings 5-1 coming off a bye, Laura. Which team do you think needs this game more? And does that play a part into who ends up winning this game?
Well, Lewis, I think the team that needs this game more is the Vikings, in my opinion. I know they're 5-1,
Really?
but a lot of people are questioning this team, Lewis. They're frauds. They haven't played anybody good. They haven't done this or they haven't done that. To drop a game like this, Lewis, would just be validating all those people's concerns. And so I think the Vikings is a big one for them. We already saw Kyler and Cliff were yelling at each other on that Thursday night game. A lot of bad blood between the Cardinals and whatever's going on over there. And so for the Vikings, I like them coming off a bye at home. I know the Cardinals also have that extra rest from the Thursday night game, but the extra bye week for the Vikings, I think, is crucial for Justin Jefferson to get healed up, Adam Thielen to get right. Dalvin Cook, he was dealing with some injury. So for everybody on that offense to get healed up, and playing at home in that amazing stadium with all those fans going Skol. I'm going Skol too in this one, Lewis. I like the Vikings at home.
So I disagree with you, but then I agree with you. I think the Cardinals need this game because they're sitting in an NFC West right now with the leading team being Seattle. And although we like the Seahawks, it's definitely a gettable division. And this Cardinals team is really, they built for this year. They traded for Hollywood Brown. They made all these moves for this win now type of team. J.J. Watt, bringing everyone in, that you can't have another mediocre season. And I think what you saw from Kyler and Cliff, that needed to happen. Now on camera, probably not, but they needed to, stoke each other's flames. And to see Kyler like that, super emotional, you never see him like that. His thing has always been he's distant. He's not really a leader. And so I think they need this game most, but it's a really bad matchup for the Cardinals going into Minnesota. Like you said, Minnesota coming off a bye. I just think the Cardinals, they got a lot of success in the running game last week. I don't think they can replicate that success against Minnesota. I think Minnesota's defense is going to play a really sound game, force the Cardinals into field goals instead of touchdowns. And for the Vikings, if they can establish a running game with Dalvin Cook, Solar Kirk, this is a 12 o'clock game. You say there's pressure on the Vikings, but I don't think so at all. The Packers look awful. Everyone else in their division is really not looking sharp either. So it's hard to say that there's additional pressure, which is exactly where Kirk Cousins thrives. When there's no pressure and he can just play football, he's going to have a standout game. I'm going with the Vikings in this one. Give me the Vikings 25 to Cardinals 20.
Well, one thing that we forgot to mention, Lewis, is that the new Modern Warfare comes out this Friday.
Woo!
And so Kyler is not watching any film. He's not getting he's not looking at any of the play calls. And so I'm gonna take the Vikings, Lewis, 31 to 26. But let's move on to another game, Lewis, that we have. The New England Patriots off a bad loss on Monday Night Football, going to New York to play the Jets. New England still -2.5, Lewis. How do you feel about that?
I think even though that whole tirade in the beginning, Bill Belichick hates the Jets and he loves playing them. And there's all that noise, from the week before. And if there's ever a game for the Patriots to shut everyone up and just go out and dominate, it's against the Jets. This might be the perfect game for them. Now, this Jets team, 5-2, and I think they've been as good as their record indicates, unlike another team we'll get to later. But this Jets team, really good defense. You just look at all their personnel defensively. They have great corners. I really like their linebackers. Their defensive line has been playing amazing. And yes, they lose their explosive rookie in Breece Hall, who's been playing really well. But then you get James Robinson to fill in. You still have Michael Carter, and there's really good receivers. The only problem is Zach Wilson has not been playing well this season, and you lose that safety valve with that explosive play touchdown threat of Breece Hall. And that was kind of the engine for this offense and this 4-0 run that they've had. So I think the Patriots get back, even as a short week on the road, it's just to the New York Jets. I like the Patriots in this matchup.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lewis. Nice. the team that Bill Belichick hates more playing than the Cleveland Browns is the New York Jets. And so I like the Patriots. It's going to be a close one, Lewis. It's going to be interesting to see, if Mac Jones goes out there and he starts looking sloppy, do they put in Zappy back in? There's going to be more of this controversy. But I think the Patriots can get it done on the road, Lewis, like you mentioned. Breece Hall, how many 60, 70 yards touchdowns has he had this season? How many big runs has he had? Just been igniting the offense. And like you mentioned, Zach Wilson just really hasn't shown me, at least through my eye test, that he's anything, flashy. And so I like the Patriots on the road, 24 to 22.
And we've seen this year the two quarterbacks that have given this Patriots defense the most problems, Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson. What are they able to do? Get out of the pocket, make plays with their legs. I don't think Zach Wilson has shown that ability so far this season. He's still kind of favoring that injury he suffered in the preseason. So this is just a really bad matchup. I think he's seeing ghosts all day. And the Patriots win this game. I'm going to go a lower scoring game because this Patriots offense is a complete enigma to me right now. Bailey's happy to go out there and throw 2 touchdowns or throw 2 touchdowns to the other team. You never really know. So I like the Patriots in this one. Give me Patriots 18 to Jets 10 in that matchup. But let's move on to our next game of the week. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Philadelphia, the in-state rivalry, the Pennsylvania Bowl. It's Philadelphia favored by 11, Laraib. We saw the Steelers when they were, 10-point underdogs the other week win a game. Is there any chance that they beat the Eagles coming off a bye week this week, Laraib?
No.
This is what we said against the Bucs. I'm just warning you.
This is the
exact same thinking.
Well, this is a different team, Lewis. This is a different coach. This is a highly motivated team at 6-0. The one thing you always fear, Lewis, a team coming off a bye, is you hope that they're not looking ahead and looking past the opponent they have in front of them. But I can still confidently believe in this team, Lewis, coming off a bye, that they're going to beat up the Steelers team at home off the bye. The Steelers, Kenny Pickett's shown some flashes. Najee Harris has been all right. George Pickens has been awesome. And so, the Steelers, they've been all right, but now you're playing against a Super Bowl contender in the Eagles, who are a highly motivated team. You bring in Robert Quinn from the trade. They're just a better overall team, and I don't think there's any way in hell they lose this game.
Yeah, this has always been a big game, no matter who's on either side, just because of the Pennsylvania connections. You've all those fans, yapping back and forth who live in the state. And this is a huge game for all those Pennsylvania fans. So the players always get up for this. And I think the Eagles, they just made another big trade for Robert Quinn. And it seems like they are totally bought in on competing and contending this season. So this is the game, you're right, they're going to be focused for coming off a bye. I think they saw all of Kenny Pickett that they needed. It was a short week for the Steelers as well, Sunday Night Football. So I think this really favors the Eagles in this matchup. It is in Philadelphia as well. We know how those fans get. So I don't think there's much to talk about in this matchup. I love the Eagles. Give me the Eagles 33 to Steelers 13.
Yep, and I'll go Eagles 30-17, Lewis. And let's move on to another game I think we will discuss rather quickly. The Tennessee Titans going to Houston to play my Texans. The line is currently Tennessee -2. I think that's really interesting for a Tennessee team who's been silently balling out, Lewis. After starting the season 0-2, they're on a 4-game win streak, and now they're up against the 1-4-1 Texans. I think this is another game, another great performance from Derrick Henry. A couple of questions last week from the Titans. They bring in Malik Willis when Ryan Tannehill had a little bit of an injury, and then they bring him in again to do some sort of fake running handoff to him, and he fumbles the ball. And that was a pivotal point in the game. But I think this week we're playing against the Texans, who we can both confidently say are the worst team in the NFL currently. I think the Titans will steamroll them on the road.
Yeah, 2 points is a very strange line considering half their fans are going to be over at Minute Maid Park watching the Astros. So it's definitely not going to be a packed stadium that day. But, I think just because of the division game, there's always been weird games between these teams. But the Titans, this is a game that they need to take care of business. The rest of the division is crumbling around them. And this is a huge game if they want to just kind of put a chokehold on the rest of their division and start pulling away. So, yeah, you're right. Not much to talk about. This Texans team has not really shown me much this season. They've been somewhat competitive in these games, but that's the best thing you can say for them. Give me the Titans. I'm going to go Titans 28 to Texans 17. It's going to look a lot closer than it actually was. But let's move on now to our 325 Fox game of the week. The Commanders traveling to Indianapolis to play the Colts. Indy favored by 3, despite Matt Ryan not playing in this game because he is benched for the rest of the season, Laraib. So in a matchup between Taylor Heineke and Sam Ehlinger, which way are you leaning?
Well, I'm just going to come out and say, Lewis, I'm confidently leaning towards the Commanders. I think we can both agree that we haven't seen much. We haven't seen Sam Ehlinger play at all. And so Taylor Heineke last week, we know how he is. He's almost a godlike figure over there in Washington for that team. Everybody in the locker room loves him. All the fans love him. I think even as non-Washington fans, we love him. And so now you're playing against a Colts team who, you take out your starting quarterback, you're paying him $24 million this year to sit on the bench now. All the air has been taken out of the locker room. What hope do those players have left over there? And so I like the Commanders. They've been really frisky. Last week, they shut down Aaron Rodgers, and I think they can continue some of that same success against the Colts, Lewis.
Laura, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm very disappointed in this game because this is a game you look at in the beginning of the season, you circle on your calendar because this was the Carson Wentz revenge game that was never there. To go back to Indianapolis where the owner said, I need him off my team. That stupid Jim Irsay. Now what situation are you in? Paying $40 million for a backup so you can play Sam Ehlinger. Yeah, I hope you lose all the rest of your games and draft another bust at quarterback because you couldn't trust Carson Wentz. And of course, now it's Taylor Heineke. And if he wins this game, he's going to get all the glory. 2-0 as a starter this season. And they're going to move on for Carson Wentz and look like another terrible franchise. But to give you my my pick, I am leaning Commanders in this game. You get Chase Young back. I think this team really found a groove, especially in the running game with Brian Robinson. And they kind of got a swagger in that game against the Packers when you beat a team like that at home. Now, you can use my logic against me. This was their best win of the season. Now traveling on the road to the Colts, who had their worst loss of the season. It's kind of tough for you to pick a team, but I'm going to go with the Commanders here. It's just a gut feeling. I like that Heineke can kind of hold down the fort while Wentz is gone and put him in a situation to where he can compete for a divisional playoff game. We might have 4 NFC East playoff teams. It's starting to look that way if the Commanders can pull this one off and get back to 500. So give me the Commanders in this one. I'm going to go 26 to Colts 20.
Well, I think Taylor Heineken can do more than hold down the fort. I think he can storm the castle for them, Lewis, unlike Carson Wentz. So I like the Commanders 23 to 21. But let's move on to another game, Lewis. We have a divisional matchup in the NFC West.
Ooh.
The San Francisco 49ers playing the Rams. San Francisco -1.5 on the road. And I like that, Lewis. The 49ers are beating the Rams 7 straight times, Lewis. And now with Christian McCaffrey back, or with another week of Christian McCaffrey, with their practice, I think they'll dominate once again. When they first matched up, I know this 49ers team had fewer injuries, a lot more guys playing, but as long as you have Deebo Samuel out there with George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey, I think they can get it done, Lewis, against a Rams team, which hasn't been impressive this year at all.
This is an extremely tough game to pick, in my opinion, because you have a 49ers team who just got embarrassed at home, then traveling to a divisional opponent, the Rams, who are coming off a bye. So in your mind, you're thinking, oh, Rams, should be favored in this matchup. It's leaning Rams. But this is a 49ers team that, coming off a disappointing loss, they both need this game. And it's going to be such a huge matchup. I am leaning Rams just because the 49ers got
That's what you did last time.
one.
That's what you did
The
last
49ers, all right. I know my logic is starting to not be sound, but in these divisional matchups, whenever you play early in the season, you play twice, even though you're leaning one way, you have all this film. You're looking at the losing film. The losers are, and they're making the adjustments, and they're coming off a bye. Sean McVay off a bye is extremely successful. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I already know he's successful. And then this 49ers team, they've already beaten the Rams. They're going to be all high and mighty. We have Christian McCaffrey. No, I like the Rams this matchup. They're going to figure something out, a trick play. It's not a great matchup, offensive line versus defensive line, and they really can't get a running game going. But I'm just praying and hoping, Sean McVay, do not let me down, that you have established something in the running game, something to get these edge rushers off of Matt Stafford so he's not throwing the league-leading interceptions now that his buddy Matt Ryan is not starting anymore. So I like the Rams in this one just because of Sean McVay. Show me that you're not a fraud. I'm going to go with the Rams in a low-scoring game. Give me 21-20. Matt Gay ends it with a field goal.
And I'm going to go 49ers 26-23. I think this is going to be Christian McCaffrey's second time playing the Rams this year. And hopefully he's learned a little bit from the first time.
No.
And so I like the 49ers, Lewis. But let's move on to the actual
it's also
game
the Rams' second time. You go.
Let's move on to the actual game of the week, Lewis. The New York Football Giants coming to Seattle to play my Seahawks. Seahawks -3, Lewis. As a resident Seahawks fan, how do you feel for the Seahawks in this game?
This is my last stand. This is my Helm's Deep moment against this Giants team, against this Giants wave. There's no way they're this good of a team. What you've been watching on your TV these last 5 weeks is hoodwink, is trick, pizzazz, misdirection, sleight of hand. They've been fooling all of us. I do not think this Giants team, I think, like I said, I think they're still going to make the playoffs, but it's just, they just find ways to win games. But at Seattle, the Seahawks team, which is really starting to find an identity, they're moving the ball offensively. And, this is just a really tough place to play, especially after playing at Jacksonville the week before, then to travel all the way across the country to Seattle. I mean, that's got to be one of the worst road trips in the NFL. So I think it's just a really hard adjustment for this team. I like the Seahawks in this one. There's no way the Giants are going 7-1 this season, right?
Well, Lewis, I know we both know that these teams are built on ground and pound, right? The Giants with Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones on the ground, and the Seahawks with Kenneth Walker, who's just been balling out. But I think the difference in this game, Lewis, is the Seahawks passing attack. We know the weapons that they have with Tyler Lockett. DK not playing in this one, but Marquise Goodwin has been playing solid, And so I think they're going to be the difference for the Giants. We know that they're lacking the weapons on the outside. And so when it comes down to it late in the fourth quarter, Lewis, I think the Seahawks will be able to move the ball through the air and get it done in a tight one at home and, still stay on top of the NFC West. And so I like my Seahawks 27-26.
And I love the Seahawks in this game. I'm going 28-17. I just think this is the we'll get to it. We'll get to it. But I'm loving this game. Come on, Seahawks. Just win, baby.
Please don't jinx my team.
Let's move on to the Sunday night football game. What a lot of people thought was going to be one of the best games of the week, but it might be one of the most lopsided matchups of the week, Laraib. You have the 3-4 Packers traveling to Buffalo. Buffalo's favored by 11.5 points. Aaron Rodgers has never been a double-digit underdog in his entire career. Yet here we sit at an 11.5 point spread. Can Aaron Rodgers shut up the doubters? Can he fix this team? Can him and Matt LaFleur come together and simplify this offense and pull out a win in Buffalo?
No way in hell.
It's not happening.
Bills coming off a bye. Another one of those teams who are just destined. They got their eyes focused on the Super Bowl this year, Lewis. And, it's going to be one of these games where I don't think they're going to struggle at all against this Packers offense because who's coming to help them, Lewis? Like you mentioned, there's nobody coming back from injury. There's no free agents coming over here. They didn't trade for anybody. So this is what you're going to get for the Packers all season long until they bring somebody in. And so no help. The cavalry is not coming, Aaron Rodgers. This is it, buddy. And so you're playing against the rested Bills in Buffalo. Josh Allen 3-0 in his career on Sunday night. Make it 4-0, Lewis.
It's just so annoying when you listen to Aaron Rodgers and all these interviews, just deflecting blame over and over. And for a player I've been able to hate for the last few years, just because he'd always dismantle my favorite teams, it's finally justifiable. He's not a team player. He's deflects blame. And like you said, there's no one on the way. You have to get good with what you got. And right now, you're out of the picture, eye rolling, and it's not looking good for the rest of your team. I think the Bills make a statement here, like you said, coming off a bye. And the Packers are starting to reel in this season, in which it doesn't really get much easier. Even though this is probably the toughest opponent you're going to play all year, it's not getting easier for you either. So I like the Bills in this game. I think they barely cover, the Packers do, but I'm going to go 33-23, and it's not going to feel that close.
And Lewis, I'm going to go 31-17. Bills knock them out of the park at home. Bills Mafia goes absolutely crazy, Lewis. But let's move on to Monday Night Football, another crucial divisional game, Lewis. The Cincinnati Bengals, who've been heating up the past couple of weeks offensively, face the Cleveland Browns, who've been falling after their 2-0 start, Lewis. Cincinnati -3 on the road. What do you think this Browns team can do to beat this Bengals high-powered offense?
Well, it's simple. When you give Nick Chubb the ball 20 times in the game, you win. When you don't, you lose. So it's about establishing the run with Chubb. But in a lot of these games, they're just, everyone knows what you're going to do. So you try to be too creative. You try to, make defenses, you try to be unpredictable, and you force mistakes. There's just, the Bengals have been rolling recently offensively. I just cannot see this Browns team keeping up with them, even though it is in Cleveland. It's just the way both these teams have looked. They're just on complete different trajectories right now. So give me the Cincinnati Bengals in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Lewis. Joe Burrow, we had some questions about this team when they struggled early, but they really found this groove against the New Orleans Saints 2 weeks ago. And then last week against the Falcons, they've really, really shown out. And so now I think against the Browns on road on Monday night, I think they get it done. They keep on rolling because they're right there in that race against, to the top of the division with the Ravens. And so this is going to be a big game for them. And so just like you, I like the Bengals 27-23.
Nice. Okay. I got to change mine now. I'm going to go with the Bengals 28-23. I just think they get that one extra point. Evan McPherson knocks it in. But that will do it for all the games for this week. We have a loaded slate of games. The only teams not playing, two of the most electric teams in the league, the Chiefs and the Chargers. However, there's been some interesting dialogue surrounding the Chargers that we won't get into now. Maybe we'll get into it on Monday. But before we go, we have our locks, upsets, and best bets of the week. Laraib, I'm going to go ahead and start with my upset. And I think I hoodwinked you a bit because I changed my mind yet again. Let's see if it's for the better. I like the Lions at home. I just think they need this game. They're desperate. It's Dan Campbell's job is on the line, and this is a good matchup for them. Dolphins coming off an emotional Sunday Night Football win, traveling to Detroit. I think this is a place, you get those electric playmakers back, and you could string a win right here.
All right, Lewis. And for my upset, I like the Panthers. The most upsets often happen in these divisional matchups, Lewis, and these two terrible teams going against each other. And like I said, if Tampa Bay loses on Thursday night, the winner of this game will take over the lead of the NFC South. And so I like the Panthers in a close game.
Yeah, and then let's move on to the locks now, Laraib. My lock, and this shocked me as much as it shocked you. But, Giants fans, you're going to hate me for this one, but I will get on my knees and apologize in our next episode if y'all win. I love the Seahawks in this spot. I just think this Giants team has been riding way too high. Everything's pointing to Seattle's favor, so give them to me as my lock.
And for my lock of the week, I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings coming off a bye. I think they have the advantage. Modern Warfare 2 comes out on Friday. Kyler Murray is going to be all wrapped up in that. And so I really like the Vikings at home. Skull.
All right. Enough of that. Moving on to our best bets of the week. This line was just so weird to me when I saw it. I still don't believe it. I think Vegas might be trying to sucker me in yet again. But Tennessee -2 against the woeful Texans. I just think there's no reason why they shouldn't at least be 3.5-point favorites, even on the road. I just think this Titans team is much better. Texans know what they're playing for right now, and his name is CJ Stroud. So let's see. I just think it's a complete mismatch, and hopefully the Titans don't choke it.
All right, Lewis. And for my best bet of the week, I'm going to go with the Las Vegas Raiders at -1.5. I think on the road against the Saints, even though they have a bad record at 2-4, Lewis, I think they're way better than that. And now I think, if they beat the Saints, it'll be by at least a field goal. And so I like the Raiders at -1.5.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's podcast, guys. Just make sure, check it down in our description below for all of our socials. And to end this episode out, Rob, you got anything?
Yeah, if you want to check out our preview for the Thursday Night Football game between the Baltimore Ravens and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's going to be at the end of our Tuesday podcast. So go ahead and check that out. But I think that's going to be the First and Goal podcast. Signing off.
Peace.